Hi, Dondi.
Hi.
So this week in the video, we're going to be discussing the article, the speech, Mark Guzdiel. How would you say his name?
Mark.
Guzdiel?
Guzdiel.
Guzdiel.
I don't know. I'm Norse at pronunciation.
I thought his ideas were really, really interesting, especially in the context of the course that we're taking right now, and just like the idea of computer science being this tool to teach in all of these other different subjects, and the possibilities of it going forward, I think are really, really interesting. I think we both have done a little bit of research, but Kylie, if you want to talk about who he actually is.
Yeah, so I looked up that he has PhD, like a dual degree in education and computer science from the University of Michigan, and his background talked a lot about how he developed something that was called Email, which was for high school programmers, and creating an environment for them, as well as working, he was like the developer of like the CoWeb, which has to deal with like wiki and universities, and so I think it's really interesting to see what he's sort of known for and what he's accomplished and how it really ties into like his dual degrees, and I think a lot of it focuses on like the education behind computer science and not necessarily, well, I think
like
it's
the
both.
Potential for it.
Yeah, it's him like really working to educate the youth on computer science and all the tools and resources that come along with that, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, I was reading, and it said his big thing that he's known for is inventing like media computation, which, like as a direct quote, says like that essentially just uses this contextualized education in computer science to attract students into the field and just kind of retain them there. And I think that's really interesting in his talk. Especially, I was looking at some of the tweets among the slides that showed the difference between like the AP computer science breakdown versus, of like male, English, female, and then versus like the AP English. And I think it was like AP computer science stuff had like 60,000, 70,000 kids, whereas the English ones had like 600,000, which is crazy. And I just really think that in the context of this class, I think I wish I had taken a little bit of computer science in high school. Like I had this class that was called like Tech Essentials, but it was like nothing. And I would have rather had like this basic coding knowledge that we have now, because I think it would have been really helpful in terms of like, I'm super not a math-minded person, but the logic of this I think could have been really helpful in me when I was taking like calculus and stuff like that. Because that kind of stuff didn't come naturally to me in more of a math environment, but it does, I think, with something with like our generation or something just comes a bit more naturally to me, having grown up with a computer, which I think is interesting. The link that I followed out of the article was talking about just the George Forsyth and the development of computer science, which it sounded like to me it was interesting because I kind of wanted to know where the basis of these ideas that Guzdiel had really came from, and I think this showed a lot of similarities in their thinking, like the fact that it was developed to be like this tool that was used to help process data and all this kind of other stuff to help teach math, which is essentially where computer science comes from. So it really was interesting, and it was interesting to me because I really wanted to know like where the basis of thought for this guy's speech really came from, and it was interesting that it was just kind of all of the foundation of all of computer science. So yeah, it was definitely something, and I think that article specifically really relates to the class as it is now, because you have a bunch of people who aren't computer science people, a lot of people who have never coded in their life before, but I think it has showed itself to be useful, at least from the videos that I've taken, and having people thinking in different ways and kind of using these tools in ways they maybe didn't expect when they first took the class, kind of like the authors of these articles were intending.
Yeah, and I looked at the article, What's the Big Idea? And essentially it was talking a lot about, it kind of concluded the article with, it's going to be really hard to reform education, but that doesn't mean you can't make a change. And part of the change it talked about was implementing more computer science as a tool to learning. And that was something that I thought really interesting, because when I thought of, like, my high school computer classes. It was, like, learning Excel and, like, things you do in the business school here. It wasn't really programming and that side of the computer. And
pretty sure in my tech class it was like, take this personality test to see what career you should be. And I'm like, this is a waste of my time.
And it really wasn't that tool that they're talking about. So I really think it would be interesting to see how education would change and, like, how developing these skills, and especially developing them younger, starting in, like, high school, and not just, I mean, I'm a junior in college, and this is the first time I'm taking a class where I'm programming. Is the first time I've ever done that. And so, but I do think it's helpful, and I know specifically for myself, I'm going into, like, the accounting field, and they're really pushing having more tech backgrounds and having candidates who know not just the accounting, but also technology and programming, because that's what our world is coming to. Everything is being, like, automated, and so
I think a valuable skill.
Yeah, it'll be really valuable, I think, moving forward as our technology continues to grow and grow and grow. Like, students are going to need to start understanding it more, and it's something that, like, right now, it's really interesting to kind of see this side of everything versus, you know, I open up my programs that I use for accounting and I just plug in numbers, but I never took the time to think about who created these programs and how do they operate.
Yeah, I agree. And the business school, I mean, we're both business majors. They have us take 3 different courses that are all focused on, like, tech and using computers and stuff, but literally all 3 of mine were all like, here's how to use Excel, which I think is a great skill in and of itself. But I think learning some sort of basic form of coding would be really useful for literally any major in the business school. So I definitely think this is something that could have been expanded, and, like, kind of just going back to education and introducing it younger. My high school, like, we literally our AP Computer Science was an online course that you took through the county. Like, it wasn't even one that was taught in person. Like, I'm almost positive, I had some friends that did it, and I'm almost positive it was pretty similar to just, like, Khan Academy.
Yeah.
So I think it would be really, really interesting to see how this is going to be applied going forward. My thoughts on just, like, education application, it's pretty easy for me to see how this could be applied to anything that basically has any sort of relation to math. But one thing I was really thinking about when reading these is, like, how this would apply to more humanities-based stuff, like English and history and, like, philosophy and all that kind of stuff, and how coding can really set up, like, the minds for that, how it could be useful there. But I think at the end of the day, it really is just about being able to have that way of thinking.
Yeah.
Because, like, for philosophy, you need to be able to follow logic. And same in, like, history, you need to be able to, like, kind of trace things backwards and infer things. And coding kind of makes you do that.
Yeah. I think
oh, man. Sorry.
I think it definitely, like, you know, with LMU, and we're all about educating the whole person, like, I think it would be really beneficial, like, if maybe one day, you know, you have certain requirements that are, like, outside classes that you have to take, like, even an English major taking this, it's so nice to, like, educate other parts of your mind, and it might work a different part of your mind, but it's a good strength to have and a good thing to understand, I think.
Yeah, and I think just kind of going on to the last bullet point about, like, agreeing and disagreeing with the vision, I think inevitably people in the future, and I think it's going to inevitably become a huge part of education because, like you mentioned earlier, Kylie, the world is becoming more and more and more automated, and while you may not be the one that's doing that automation, it's not going to do anything but help you to understand the way that it works. So I think my thoughts on the idea is that at least having the very most basic grasp of understanding of coding and computer science in general is something that's going to be pretty necessary to be, like, you know, helpful, or, like, just kind of live your life in an informed and educated way going into the future.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what the speaker was saying in his vision, because I think, you know, the future has a lot of technology, and I think it's beneficial to understand it, and I don't think it can hurt, because I've noticed just from myself being enrolled in this class, it's definitely helped me and taught me to think in a different way as I continually, like, grow with it. So I think it can benefit really everyone.
Definitely. These were really interesting articles. I'm definitely glad that we were assigned them this week just for kind of another perspective. But I don't have any further questions.
I don't have any further questions either.
Awesome. See you on Tuesday.